Thiassi would not have realized anything had happened had it not been for his daughter, Skadi, who came into Idunn's room just in time to see the hawk flying out of the window with a nut in its claw, and realized that something was amiss. Grabbing one of the giant candles, she lit it and waved it back and forth until the movement caught her father's attention out on the lake. Thiassi rode back to his castle and bounded up the stairs 4 at a time to ask his daughter what was wrong. When she told him Idunn had escaped, he flew into a rage and immediately ran to put on his suit of eagle's feathers. Roaring Loki's name and swearing to kill him, he flew off in pursuit. Loki was halfway back to Asgard and felt sure that they would be safe once behind the gleaming realm's walls, but Thiassi could fly much faster than Loki, and he rapidly began to gain ground on the fleeing gods. Heimdall witnessed it all, and as he described what he was seeing, all the other gods mounted the battlements of Asgard to see what was happening. At first they could only see 2 specks in the distance, but they quickly got larger, and soon it began to seem probable that the eagle would overtake the hawk before it reached the battlements, though it would be a close contest. Of all the gods, only Tyr had the presence of mind to anticipate what was needed, and he called to Baldur and Frey to help him pile up wood and crates and timber just outside the battlements. Once the pile of wood was higher than the battlements themselves, he poured oil on it, lit the torch, and then waited. As Loki drew nearer, the giant bearing down on him, the gods began to urge him on, giving him just the extra strength and speed he needed to evade the clutch of the eagle's talons. Loki passed over the battlements just seconds in front of Thiassi, but as soon as he did, Tyr lit the great pile of oil-soaked wood. The giant, who had not seen Tyr's trap in the twilight, flew into a roaring wall of flame and exploded into a huge fireball himself, the magical eagle's feathers igniting like dry grass on a summer's day. Thiassi was totally incinerated, except for his sapphire-blue eyes, which were indestructible and ended up embedded in the wall as a result of the impact. Loki and Idunn landed in Asgard, and the goddess of spring was met by cheers and laughter, though Loki received only the sharp side of the gods' tongues and many a pointing finger. Before long the aging immortals were eating of the enchanted fruit. The gods were for punishing Loki, wanting to torture or exile him because of his former treachery, but he pleaded with Odin to remember their blood oath. The arguments went back and forwards into the night, and torches were lit to dispel the darkness, and who knows what would have happened had it not been for a new emergency. The ever-watchful Heimdall gave the alarm, and the gods swarmed to the parapets to see, marching towards them out of the darkness, the fully armed and armoured Skadi, the daughter of the dead giant, who had followed her father in order to help him, but had arrived too late. Now Skadi had with her some very powerful enchanted weapons that her father, in his haste to chase after Loki and Idunn, had not had time to pick up. These weapons made her an adversary worthy of respect, for they could kill even immortals. So Odin began to parley with her, asking her what she wanted. "Retribution for my dead father is what I want," said the grim-faced Skadi, turning her dead father's magic axe in her hands, apparently determined to have blood revenge. Odin, though, explained the full story to Skadi, and managed to convince her that her father had brought his destruction upon himself, suggesting that they could compensate her in some way for what she had lost. "What can take the place of my now dead father?" asked the giantess challengingly, and it was crafty Loki who responded quick as a flash. "What about a live husband, mighty princess? One of the gods of Asgard, perhaps? Many there are who could make you happy and brighten the lonely darkness of the long nights ahead in Jotunheim." The shining face of Baldur the Beautiful caught Skadi's eye, and without a second's hesitation she responded, "Done. I accept your offer, but I want him," pointing to the Shining One as she spoke. And now Loki knew that the Asgardians, who loved Baldur dearly, would not allow him to be whisked off to Jotunheim, so he craftily manipulated the situation, flattering the giantess shamelessly to save his skin. "But, beauteous Skadi, if you take Baldur just like that, it will not be fair on all the other gods, who I can see would jump at the chance of winning your hand. Let there be a competition to decide who shall receive the honour." This really set the cat among the pigeons, because in truth the grim-faced giantess, in her father's war helm and brandishing his magical battle-axe, was no one's idea of a desirable future wife, and the gods began arguing amongst themselves as to who should be the luckless sacrificial husband. Eventually Odin decided the matter and declared that Skadi should choose her husband to be, but that she must do so solely by looking at his feet. A great wooden screen was brought, and all the eligible bachelors of Asgard, and some not so eligible, stood behind it, barefooted. Skadi was brought before the screen, which was raised 10 inches from the ground, so that only the god's feet could be seen. She had to pick the god whose feet she found most appealing. After a few minutes of inspecting the feet behind the screen, she noticed one pair of feet that were whiter than all the others, and thinking they must belong to Baldur, she picked them. Imagine her surprise when the god who walked around from the other side of the screen turned out to be none other than Njord, the sea god, whose feet were so white from the amount of time he spent standing in the surf, looking out over his watery domain. Being a god, though, he was considerably more handsome than anything Skadi was used to mixing with in Jotunheim, and so, feeling only slightly disgruntled, the giantess from the mountains married the god of the sea. The wedding was held in Asgard, and in all the commotion, the gods pretty well forgot about the fix Loki had gotten them into. And that was how the wily Loki saved himself from the wrath of the gods on that occasion.